Is it possible to build an AI leadership team? Let's find out with today's special guest, Keith Wasserstrom.
Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, where we make AI simple, practical, and accessible for small business owners and leaders. Forget the complicated tech talk or expensive consultants. This is where you'll learn how to implement AI strategies that are easy to understand and can make a big impact for your business. The Artificial Intelligence Podcast is brought to you by Fraction AIO, the trusted partner for AI digital transformation. At Fraction AIO, we help small and medium-sized businesses boost revenue by eliminating time-wasting, non-revenue generating tasks that frustrate your team. With our custom AI bots, tools, and automations, we make it easy to shift your team's focus to the tasks that matter most, driving growth and results. We guide you through a smooth, seamless transition to AI, ensuring you avoid costly mistakes and invest in the tools that truly deliver value. Don't get left behind. Let Fraction AIO help you stay ahead in today's AI-driven world. Learn more and get started at fractionaio.com.
Keith, I'm excited to have you here because you're just a master of translating the technical into the understandable, because so many lawyers feel like they speak in calligraphy and a little bit of Latin. And a lot of times people have the same approach to artificial intelligence. There's a lot of different keywords that we use to sound smarter. It's like, I'm a prompt engineer. It's a lot of words to say you're good at asking questions of ChatGPT. And we have a lot of this technical jargon. And one of the challenges that happens as you work further up the hierarchy is that you can't afford to seem dumb. So you can't admit you don't know what a word is or what things are. And it comes the emperor's new clothes, where nobody knows what it means, but nobody wants to admit that they don't know what it means. And this happens to me all the time. I'm in meetings constantly where I'm looking up what terms mean and double checking it. And there's always a simpler name for it. There's either an acronym or something else. Just starting from that point, how could someone in leadership, is there a way to without seeming dumb, say you don't know what something means?
First of all, I remember it reminds me of an experience. I was a general counsel of family office, and we had quarterly meetings with all the presidents of all the different companies that the family office owned. And the chairman, president of all the companies, I guess, whatever, or he owned all the companies, he would lead the meetings. And most of the people around the room were, I don't want to say yes men and women, but nobody wanted to see. He got very, I don't want to say, if you challenged him, whatever. So he was using a term wrong and everyone in the room knew it. And it was just funny because people are looking at each other and a little smirky and whatever else. And finally, I just corrected him after several times going around using that silly word. And he got embarrassed, but he started laughing. He says, why, if I had never broccoli on my teeth, why wouldn't somebody say never, kind of thing? It made me look stupid longer. So he appreciated it. And the only reason I did it is because I felt extremely comfortable in my position. I was not worried about getting reprimanded or fired and like that. So I said it, and I said it in a funny way. So not to embarrass him, hopefully not to embarrass him, but everyone else cracked up because they were all thinking the same thing. So it's a challenge. And it's funny, I was an M&A lawyer, securities lawyer, and all kind of stuff, dealing with the SEC, and they all have their different languages. And sometimes I didn't know, and you try to figure out in context. I remember when I was an associate, you figure out based on the context of the conversation, what they might be talking about. And when I started out, there wasn't Google. So I couldn't. Today, it's so simple. In the middle of our conversation, I can just Google those 3-letter words that you gave me and figure out exactly what I'm talking about. Back then, it was a little more challenging.
It's really interesting how now there's no longer a period of not knowing what something means or what something is. You no longer have to wonder. Anything no matter how random the thought is, you can look it up and know within a few minutes. And one of the other challenges I've noticed in leadership is that there tend to be two spectrums. One end of the spectrum is the leader who is trying to do everything himself, trying to get in there. And this is something I deal with in the CTO role. There's a temptation to be the one coding. But if you're coding, you're not leading. You can't do both, right? Because you need to be available. And it's like 90% meetings. I'm not a meetings guy, but now I'm in meetings all the time. And it's different. When you're the one running the meeting, suddenly they feel a lot more important. And then you're the one sitting there silently. But it's at the other end of the spectrum, though, is the leader who's kind of hands off and trusts everyone. But then when something's wrong, they find out really farther down the line. It takes them a lot longer. How can a leader find the happy medium where they're not putting in 100 hours a week, but also where they still have the finger on the pulse of the business?
So I am a business coach, and one of my platforms that I work with is called System and Soul. And the system is very much, if you're familiar with the entrepreneurial operating system, it's EOS. It's been around for a long time. So System and Soul is newer, maybe 5 years or so. And they really added the soul, a part of it, which is really dealing with employees and purpose and making sure people are happy and fulfilled at work. But on the system side, so we have, I think EOS calls it like a level 10 meeting. We have a weekly sync. And the idea of the weekly sync is it should be a quick meeting. Sometimes they do it standing up to make sure it's quick. And the idea is you go around the room, and again, every week you're meeting. And so you say, these are the things I need to accomplish this week. And at the next meeting, you just say, these are the 3 things, yes and no. I did number 1, I did number 2, I didn't do number 3. And then if that goes on for a long time, you're not getting to number 3, at some point the leader has to realize, okay, what's the problem with number 3? Is it a personal problem? We need that done. And you said you were going to do it last week and the week before that. Why aren't you getting to it? And it could be there are other, like sometimes the leader puts on other priorities on top of those things. And I know that happened to me, and I would sometimes ask, I said, okay, you wanted me to do this. Is this more important than this? And you having that communication, which a lot of times there does not exist. So these weekly syncs are really good. Just make sure everyone knows what they're supposed to do this week. And if they're accomplishing it, accountability, because that's the thing that the leader needs to see, who's doing what, who's not doing what. And if they need help, a good leader would say, how can I help you with that? I see you haven't gotten to three weeks in a row now. How can I help you with that? What do you need from me? Or what resources do you need, or something like that? So those kind of, if you have that kind of a quick meeting, because nobody likes meetings. There's a funny thing we talk about, how if you look around the room, that 8 people in a room all making, $200,000 a year kind of thing, you're spending a lot of money on meetings. So we try to cut those out and make it more efficient.
You literally read my mind. Every time I'm in a meeting, I look around thinking about how much is this meeting costing me. That's one of the big differences between an entrepreneur and someone who's gone up through the ranks, right? Because when it's your own business, you're thinking, I'm spending, this meeting's costing me $2,000 a minute, or $2,000, even $2,000 an hour. And it's like, is it worth it? And it changes. It's so different than when it's not your own money, or when it's like the corporate credit. It's just like people spend more on the corporate credit card than their own credit card. And it's amazing how much your mindset shifts when you start thinking about, like, rather than, is this meeting worth my time? Is it worth everyone's time? And I've heard this saying that, like, if someone's not allowed to speak at a meeting, then they don't need to be there. Because I do see some of these meetings that are just too many people. And it's like, is the purpose of all the people there just so someone has to listen to you? And one of the kind of challenges to navigate is, which also you brought up, which is great, is like knowing the real priority tree. Because I've seen some businesses where everything's an emergency. And when everything's an emergency, nothing's an emergency. And I see there's another version of this where there's multiple scales. Like sometimes it's a scale of 1 to 10, and sometimes it's a scale of cold to hot. And it's like, can we just use one scale for everything? Because I sometimes work with clients and I don't understand their emergency scale. So I'll say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big a deal of it is this? And if they keep giving me 10s, I know something's wrong, because it's not. I'm like, here's a 10. There's a tiger in the room with you is a 10. You hear a tiger in the hall, that's a 9. Tiger outside the house, we're talking 7. But there has to be a scale, because tiger in the room has to be worse than tiger outside. And this is something where, because I feel like this can actually establish a culture of like red alert. So, when a ship's in trouble, they go, okay, we're battle stations, red alert. You can't be at red alert all the time, because people's nerves get frayed. People can't be giving 100% attention. And this is one of the struggles, because as a leader, you want to get everything done. And I've been there too. As a leader myself, sometimes I'm like, I want everything to get done on time. And one of the things you have to deal with is that it never gets done as fast as you want. Something always happens, and sometimes it's your fault. You say, work on this project, or you distract someone. All you have to do is give one wrong hint about a future project. You can throw off everyone. So you have to, I've done this myself recently. So just realizing that, as we enter this world of artificial intelligence, a lot of CEOs or a lot of leaders know they want it, but they're not sure why. We've gone through this a few times. We went through the phase of, I need a cell phone. Why? You were that. I need a car phone. My kids can't believe a car phone's a thing. Or I needed a pager and I need this. I need to be available. And the question is why? We can jump over it because it's exciting. Or I need a website. So many people go there. I need a website 30 years ago. Why do you need a website? I'm not sure, but I've heard I need it. And we're going through that now with AI. Everyone says, I need it. I don't. And you go, what do you mean? They go, I don't know. And it's a real challenge for CTOs, for tech teams, even for myself when I do consulting on projects. It's that I have to dig in to figure out what exactly do you want the AI to do? When you say AI, what do you mean? And the definition is very broad. No two people mean the same thing when they say AI. So for people I try to approach it from a problem solution. Tell me what the problem is, and then we'll figure out if AI is the solution. Because if you buy a hammer, you're going to start looking for nails, right? When I buy a tape measure at the store, I come home, I have to start measuring stuff to show to my wife that I didn't waste the money. Like, you start using whatever tool you buy. And we see this where people do make a major investment, whether it's AI or another tool, and suddenly they want everyone to use it because otherwise they have to admit they made a mistake. And it's like good money after bad. So how can leaders from the top down navigate this world and possibly build out some of their team using artificial intelligence or some of the modern tools, some of the technologies?
First, I just want to mention, as you were talking about the emergencies, I remember I had a client that everything was an 11. So I was like, exactly what you're saying. Okay, obviously it's not a big deal if everything's an 11. I had this experience. EO is just completely foreign to me, right? I understand what it's supposed to do and everything else. And I remember I had a friend who did SEO when we were actually good friends. So he convinced me to give him $25,000, and instead of me paying for leads with $10 for every lead, he would create the SEO for my website so that I wouldn't have to pay for leads anymore. So it sounded like it made sense because I was spending, like probably $20,000 on leads every month. But after 3 or 4 months, nothing happened. I apologize for the dogs. And eventually 6 months later, he came to me and says, listen, I apologize to you. I owe you $25,000. I did nothing. And I was like, it was good to hear, but I never got the $25,000. It's a different issue. I just think that the AI is similarly like that black box. People really just don't know what it is. And I tell people every once in a while, are you using ChatGPT? Just ask it a question. And I get them to do something with ChatGPT. You give me a headline for a new commercial or something like that. And it would know, you tell it what the issues are. And it's like, that's cool. That's amazing. Because you might sit there and think about all the different idea of a commercial, and ChatGPT could give you 10 ideas just like that. So it's that easy aspect is something to just make them understand exactly what AI is to a very low similar extent, easy extent. I guess they could at least understand and appreciate what that does. But I think people are reluctant to use technology. I remember when I started as a lawyer, we just got emails, and my boss, I was a new associate. He was a senior partner at the firm, and he used email because everyone uses email, but he did not want, and he was upset about it because normally a client who wanted a project done would call the lawyer, most of the time not get him, leave a message. The lawyer would call back when it was convenient for the lawyer and maybe not get the client. So it could go a week or two before he has to address that issue. Now with email, he says, I get the message. They're expecting me to do something right away. So he said, because I wanted to give a client his text message or his phone numbers for a text message. He goes, absolutely not. Now, I guess this is 1992. He said, then everyone just could demand it immediately. So he said, forget that. So he refused to hand out. He was very reluctant on emails, by the way, but text messages, absolutely not. It just changed everything, everything is now. So I think there is some concern and fear. Clearly, I know employees in certain things that they're doing, especially on the research side, if you could just ask ChatGPT or whatever the other Perplexity, the other ones, what you're looking for, you're going to get it a heck of a lot quicker which actually reminds me of another quick story. As a first-year associate, I walked into my partner's office. He called me into his office. He asked me a question. And as I was leaving his office, I walked by another partner's office. And I just poked my head in and asked her the answer to his question. She knew right off the top of her head. So I went back to him and I gave him the answer. And he said, he got up, he went and slammed the door shut. And he said, Keith, how are we going to make money if you can answer the question like that? And also, I want you to learn. I could have walked in next door and asked her myself if I needed to know the question. And I probably knew the answer anyway. So he said, you need to learn how to research and learn and you need to learn how to find the answer. So he's just very upset. And the other point, I guess his point was, well, you could have spent an hour on it. We could build something. And again, you get better and you get experience and I get paid. So it was a learning experience as well.
Yeah, one of the challenges that happens is once you do it fast, they expect it to be fast every time after that. And there's this idea that I've thought about a lot, which is that we got watches so we could be on time, but all it does is means you bill out more of the day, right? Lawyers bill out in 6, 15, 3-minute increments. And now you have to get more and more strict. And the same thing happens each time we have a technology that says, oh, you're going to get all your time. Once we got email, did we get our time back? No, because people expect immediacy, like your boss was saying. Same thing with cell phones. And what's interesting is that we see more and more of you have to work when you're on vacation. You have to work when you're here. You're always available. Your boss will call you on the weekends. When I was younger and my family went on vacation, that was it. You knew what city we were in. Like you would scoot hotels asking for the names to try and right now you still have that immediate access, and it actually had this negative effect. I see this with a lot of employees. But you do something fast with AI, and now rather than you getting more breathing room, there's just expectation for you to deliver 120%, 130% every day. So it doesn't make things better. And I see this a lot. We talk about efficiency. Like you're not really, if I help you with AI and I can get you to be more efficient to where you get 5 days of work done in 3 days, you're not going to take a 4-day weekend. You could, or you can make a little bit more money. And that's one of the challenges is that with all of these tools, especially if we promise more free time, we have this drive that causes us to put in more time and still put that pressure behind us. Is there a way to navigate that? Because I see one of the challenges that your employees get burned out or they feel that too much pressure because really, he did it in 1 minute once, he could do it 1 minute again.
Yes. One of the things I sort of coach on is the work-life balance. And we try to use these new technologies, which is today AI. And also a lot of people, there's this whole thing that my old boss at the family office, he would spend his entire Saturday signing checks for every single one of the employees. He had 1,000 employees. And one time I remember I used to be one of the last people at the office, but every once in a while he'd be in the office when I left. And I always say goodbye. And I say, listen, why are you working so hard? That guy's a billionaire. So he said, Keith, I have 1,000 people that are counting on me. And he really felt that pressure of if something happened to him or one of his businesses, people would be unemployed and not get checks, not feed their families. So he really felt that pressure. So something I really try to focus on is if you think you could do everything the best in the office, but if you could find somebody else that does it 75% as good as you, delegate. Take that task off of your plate. And now you have more free time. Now, again, trying to convince people to do the right thing with that free time is a challenge. I had one client who hired me because he was very successful. His business was phenomenal, but he just had a wife and 2 kids and one on the way. And he says, I want to spend more time with my family. I said, I can't do it. So there's this whole idea of having a visionary and an operator, somebody that actually gets stuff done, the guy who has all the big, great thoughts. So he was the visionary, but he was also the operator because when you start your new business, you're typically both. So I found him an operator, somebody who manages the medical office because he was in the medical field. She took half of his plate off task off of his plate, and he had more time on his hands. The problem that he had was he started opening offices in other cities. So I joke with him, like after the first year, I said, look, it's a good thing you hired me and not your wife, because for you, I might be successful, but your wife, a complete failure. You're not spending any more time with her. I only used to speak to him when he was in an airport. It's 100% a problem. I guess that's maybe a different problem. Like you say, you choose, I want to make more money versus I want to spend more time with my family. So that's a choice thing that we never even got into with that conversation with him. But I'm sure his wife's going to have the conversation with him.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that he realized he doesn't like his family that much.
But I don't want to go there.
My wife doesn't like it. I think that as we get more technology, we keep getting this. The promise never comes true, though, that we'll have more free time because the time always fills. There's more meetings now than before. I went through this phase where I started getting imaginary buzzes from my phone because I was expecting messages all the time. And now I realized something that took me a long time. It's that it's always an emergency until it's on their desk. So I've had projects where they go, this is an emergency, I need it by next week. And they don't look at it for 12 months.
Yes.
And
Kills you.
And I've started to realize that my phone, I leave it on silent all the time. I never turn the noise on my phone because if it's an emergency, you'll find me. I'm easy to find. I work from home and all the people that need to find me can walk upstairs because unless you're a fireman, doctor, a police officer, it's never an emergency to the minute. It's never that level of an emergency. And we think there's this feeling of importance that comes with being available. I'm available all the time. I must be important because doctors have pagers and now I have a pager. So I'm important like a doctor. And it creates this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where you start to feel more important. So you become more available. So you become busier, but not really true. It doesn't really make you more important. It just makes you more stressed out or more less doing it. Because people that are really important, they're hanging out on yachts all the time. They're flying around in private jets. They don't have cell phone. I don't think any president has a cell phone. If they want to do a phone call, they say, Steve, give me your phone. That's how I imagine it. When you're at that level, it's why would I have a phone? I'm surrounded by people who have a phone for me. So it's that level, how can someone approaching this next technological revolution, we're in this AI bubble, there's a lot of this pressure to use these new technologies, actually be strategic and say, I'm going to implement technologies in a way that don't increase the pressure on my team, that don't increase the demands, but instead give us the benefits that actually do lower our stress, lower amount of time, and let us get more done with less pressure. Is that even possible?
So I think for an hourly worker, somebody who works 9 to 5 and that's their job, if we do make their 8 hours really 4 hours because of AI or any other great technology, they still have to sit in the office for 4 hours. Now, again, maybe we can give them twice as much work and now they're twice as efficient and the company's making twice as much money. That's possible, but there's not always that much work for them to do. So theoretically, then you run into the employees will worry about losing their jobs because they're doing everything in half time. They don't need me the full time. So so I think one of the challenges of all these things, even with my client that started opening up offices instead of spending more time with his family, it's the why. He hired me because he wanted to spend more time with his family, but that disappeared as soon as I solved his immediate problem and gave him the ability to spend more time with his family. And again, maybe you're right that there's an excuse. I know I have 5 grandkids now. So when I spend a day with them, I'm exhausted. It is tiring. I go home and rest from that. So you want to do it, but it's also a challenge. It's if you find out exactly what their goal is, whoever's suggesting this new technology, this AI or whatever it is, if the goal is to make the person work twice as hard or get twice as much done, maybe that just puts more stress on the person. So maybe if there's some kind of happy medium where instead of working 8 hours, you're only going to get 6 hours worth of work to do, but I'm going to still pay you because you're getting 8 hours of work done. So that is a win-win. Again, I don't know a lot of owners that might want to do that, especially not my old boss, but I think there are people out there that would recognize the efficiency, benefit from it, and also share that benefit. And that probably is the best way to have a really engaged workforce, all looking for ways to cut cut corners and be more efficient and be more effective and everything else for the benefit of the company. So I think that there are ways if it's managed properly.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's a really strong perspective because especially as we have more and more people working from home, working remotely, we have to find systems where we track value rather than time. With my employees, and I'm glad you brought this up, I say, here's what I expect you to get done in a week. Here's a week's worth of work to me. If you get it done in 2 hours, I don't care. I can't see you and you can't see me. You don't know I'm in the swimming pool during this phone call, and I don't care if you're in the bathtub. And that's really freeing because it's when you try to do this time tracking, boss, now you have more work because now you're checking their screenshots and checking their mouse activity, and you create the culture you don't want. You've given yourself a ton of extra work, and I don't want any of that. So as long as, and I had to make this transition because I'm not able to run a team that way. Whenever I've tried to run a team that way, it's been ineffective for me. But when I've switched to, here's the number of tasks I want done, here's how long it should take. Or at the beginning, I say, here's what I want you to do. How long will this take you? And they have to estimate their own time. And that gives me a sense of, do I feel like I'm getting value? Are you getting enough done in this amount of time? And that removes all of these other pressures. And it also lets them do what they want. I have people work for me. I have one lady who works for me. I suspect she works 1 hour a month, but her results are so good. It doesn't matter. She doubles, her numbers double every month. I go, I don't know what you're doing, but I also don't care. Why would I look inside that magic box? It's like, it's always double. That's great. So I think you've ended on a really great point. For people who want to know more about what you do, Keith, are interested, maybe they want to lower the pressure in their own lives and they're kind of feel a little bit of that stress. How can they find out about you, connect with you online, and maybe just learn more about the things that you do?
I appreciate that. Yeah. Again, it's Keith Wasserstrom. I'm at corporatecounsel.com. Corporate Counsel. It's corporateCounsel.com. As a former lawyer, that's where the counsel comes from. And I have a lot of really good tools. I have a call right now in 15 minutes with my system and soul team. And every week we get together, all the coaches, and we learn a new tool, which are really help us on the culture side, the purpose and the making sure people are happy going to work and all kind of stuff. So I love to share those with people, and free consultation. Happy to see if I can help before we get engaged. But I also love helping people.
Amazing. I'll make sure to put the links in the show notes and below the video for people watching on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here for another amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Monday with more tips and strategies on how to leverage AI to grow your business and achieve better results. In the meantime, if you're curious about how AI can boost your business's revenue, head over to artificialintelligencepod.com/calculator. Use our AI revenue calculator to discover the potential impact AI can have on your bottom line. It's quick, easy, and might just change the way you think about your business. While you're there, catch up on past episodes, leave a review, and check out our socials. If you enjoyed this episode, I've got 2 more that I think you're going to love. Click one of these videos to dive into more awesome content, and don't forget to subscribe for even more insights on using AI to grow your business. And I'll see you in the next one.